gonna be kind of right tonight. Come on. Your name was Patty, but now
Something happened to R&B between 1960 and 1980. Something quiet, something seismic. The music didn't just change sounds, it changed souls.
I go out with you.
In the 1960s, R&B was raw, desperate, human. It came from church pews and dusty recording booths and the ache of people who had nothing but their voices.
What you say?
By the 1980s, everything had shifted. The synthesizers moved in, the drum machines took over, and somehow R&B became something entirely new. But was it better? Was it worse? Or was it just different? Welcome to Soul Listeners. Tonight, we're placing 5 legends from the 1960s side by side with 5 icons from the 1980s. Same genre, 20 years apart, a world away from each other. This is not just a comparison. This is a journey into the DNA of black music. If you've ever felt something listening to a song you couldn't quite explain, this video was made for you. Hit subscribe, because Soul Letters goes deeper than the charts. Let's go back, all the way back. Number 10, The Impressions, It's Alright, 1963. Before R&B became a genre for the radio, it was a genre for survival.
It's alright. It's alright.
The Impressions understood that better than almost anyone. Curtis Mayfield was 20 years old when he wrote It's Alright, 20 years old. And already, he sounded like a man who had seen the full weight of the world. The song hit number 1 on the R&B charts in 1963. But the charts don't tell the real story. The real story is what it meant on the street. In black neighborhoods across America, in the middle of the civil rights movement, this song was oxygen. The harmonies were soft, almost gentle. But underneath them was something unbreakable. It wasn't protest music, it wasn't shouting, it was quieter than that. And somehow, that made it louder. The Impressions would go on to define socially conscious soul. But this was the beginning. And the beginning was everything. Number 9, Solomon Burke, Cry to Me, 1962. If you want to understand where R&B truly came from, you start with Solomon Burke.
Come on, band. When your baby.
Not because he was the most famous, not because he sold the most records, but because he contained everything. Gospel, blues, country, soul. All of it at once. All of it fighting to get out. Cry to Me hit the charts in 1962.
Don't you feel like crying?
But the number means nothing compared to what the song does to you when you actually hear it. Burke recorded it in one take.
But the smell of her perfume.
No pitch correction, no overdubs, no auto-tune. Just a man, a microphone, and a lifetime of feeling. The Rolling Stones covered it.
Cry to me.
The British invasion was partly built on the foundation Solomon Burke laid. And yet by the late 1960s, his commercial peak had passed. The industry moved on, the way it always does.
Don't you feel like crying?
But Cry to Me didn't move on. It's still there, still waiting, still asking the question that R&B has always asked. Who are you crying to? Number 8, Ike and Tina Turner, A Fool in Love, 1960. Before Tina Turner became a legend. Before the stadium tours and the decades of solo triumph. There was 1960.
Please tell me what's wrong.
There was a 19-year-old girl named Anna Mae Bullock standing in a recording studio in St. Louis, singing a lead vocal she was never supposed to sing. Ike Turner originally recorded A Fool in Love with another singer. That singer didn't show up. Anna Mae stepped in and everything changed. The record was raw, reckless, almost uncomfortable in its energy. Tina sounded like someone who had grabbed the microphone by force and refused to let go.
You think I'm lying, but I'm telling you like it is.
The voice that would one day shake arenas first shook a cheap microphone in a budget studio because of a last-minute substitution. History is strange like that. But the story behind the story was darker than anyone knew. The years that followed were full of pain, full of shadows, full of a woman who gave everything and was given very little in return. The comeback came, eventually, gloriously, but in 1960, all you heard was the power, and the power was undeniable. Number 7, Ray Charles Hit the Road Jack, 1961. You cannot tell this story without arriving at the man who invented the collision. Ray Charles took gospel music, stripped out the religious language, poured in the secular world, and created something that made church mothers furious and record buyers obsessed. Hit the Road Jack was released in 1961. It hit number 1 on the pop charts and number 1 on the R&B charts simultaneously. It was a perfect song, minimal, percussive, built on call and response straight from the black church tradition. But what nobody mentions is how radical it felt at the time. Mixing the sacred and the secular was controversial. Ray Charles was accused of corrupting gospel. He was banned from certain venues. He kept going. I'll be back on my feet someday. Because he understood something it took the industry decades to fully grasp. The most powerful music lives in the space between the holy and the human. Hit the Road Jack still lives there, still pointing at the door. Number 6, Aretha Franklin, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. 1967, we were always going to end up here. You cannot talk about this era. You cannot talk about any era of R&B without arriving at Aretha Franklin. I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You was recorded in Muscle Shoals, Alabama in January of 1967. Her first record for Atlantic, the beginning of the greatest run in the history of soul music. The session almost didn't happen. There was a fight, there was chaos. The musicians nearly walked out, and then Aretha sat down at the piano. And everything went quiet. The record was raw in ways polished production would never allow. You can hear the room, you can hear the breath. You can hear something ancient and enormous moving through a 24-year-old woman's chest. It told every woman who heard it that they were allowed to want something desperately, completely, without apology. 1967 gave R&B its soul. Aretha Franklin gave that soul a name, and now everything changes. We cross the bridge, 20 years forward, into a world of synthesizers, drum machines, and a brand new hunger. The 1980s are waiting. Number 5, Freddie Jackson, Rock Me Tonight, for Old Time's Sakey, 1985. The first voice out of the 1980s belonged to a man who understood romance like
Come on and rock me.
it was a second language he had been born speaking. Rock Me Tonight was unapologetically lush, synthesizers dripping, drums like a slow heartbeat. Production that felt expensive, cinematic, and deeply romantic. It debuted at number 1 on the R&B charts and stayed there for 6 weeks.
I really miss the way you squeeze and moan.
The listener in 1985 wasn't running from anything. They were arriving somewhere. They wanted sophistication. They wanted to feel elevated. Freddie Jackson gave them that.
To go straight to the groove.
But behind all that polish and production, the longing in his voice was the exact same longing Solomon Burke carried in 1962. The clothes changed. The studios changed. The synthesizers arrived. But the ache never left. Number 4, Alexander O'Neal Fake, 1987. By 1987, R&B had a new vocabulary. Minneapolis was the new Memphis. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were the new architects, and the studio had become something closer to a laboratory. Alexander O'Neal walked into that laboratory and recorded Fake.
I found out something new. You're a fake.
And when it came out, it felt like a verdict. The groove was tight. The production was cold in the best possible way, clinical, precise. But O'Neal's voice cut through all of it like a warm knife.
Alex is the name that I go by.
Fake became an anthem for anyone who had ever been deceived by someone they trusted. 1962 said, "I'm hurting."
I know, 'cause I can feel it.
1987 said, "I see through you." 20 years changed the posture. The vulnerability didn't disappear, it just grew a spine. Number 3, Janet Jackson, "What Have You Done For Me Lately," 1986, and now we arrive at the moment R&B became something it had never quite been before. Janet Jackson was 19 years old when she made Control. She had spent her entire life being managed, directed, shaped by other people's visions of who she should be. Then she walked into the studio with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and she took control. "What Have You Done For Me Lately" wasn't just a hit, it was a declaration. A young woman telling the world she was done being passive. It hit number 1 R&B. It crossed over to pop. The video was sharp, confident, almost militaristic in its energy.
What to be thankful for the little things. You've got one life to live. Who's right? Who's wrong?
1960 gave us women who sang about love and survival. 1986 said, "That's not enough anymore." She wanted ownership. She wanted authorship. She got both. Number 2, Luther Vandross, "Never Too Much," 1981. If Ray Charles was the architect of the sacred and the secular, Luther Vandross was the architect of the perfect.
I can't fool myself, I don't want nobody.
Never Too Much was his debut single in 1981, and from the very first note, it was obvious this was not a regular talent. The voice was impossible. Velvet and thunder at the same time. Precise and emotional simultaneously.
Remember in the days when I was scared to touch you. You must have known that I had feelings deep enough.
The production was immaculate. Synthesizers that somehow felt warm. Everything in exactly its right place. It hit number 1 R&B. And Luther Vandross became the defining voice of romantic soul almost overnight.
I just don't wanna stop. Too much, never too much.
But here is the part that quietly breaks your heart. Luther Vandross spent decades celebrated by millions. Yet behind the curtain, he carried weight the industry never fully acknowledged. He battled pressures.
I called you up, but you weren't there, and I'd rather be with you, 'cause you make my heart scream and holler.
He battled a world that consumed his voice and sometimes forgot the man behind it. He gave love songs to everyone. Whether he ever truly received what he gave, he left that unanswered.
A million days in your arms is never, and I just don't wanna stop.
Never Too Much became an ironic title in ways the world wasn't ready to sit with. Number 1, Whitney Houston, "Greatest Love of All," 1986, and then we arrive at the end, which is also in many ways the beginning of an ending. Whitney Houston recorded Greatest Love of All in 1985.
I believe the children are our future. Let the children's laugh.
Released in 1986, it rose to number 1 on the pop charts. It became one of the best-selling singles of the decade. On the surface, it was an anthem of self-worth, of dignity, of teaching children to believe in themselves.
People need someone to look up to.
But listen again. Listen to the line about never walking in anyone's shadow. Listen to a 22-year-old woman singing about finding strength inside yourself.
Everybody's searching for a hero.
And then remember what happened. The decades that followed. The industry that swallowed her. The tragedy that arrived in 2012. Greatest Love of All became the most painful kind of prophecy. A song about protecting yourself, sung by someone the world would eventually fail to protect. 1967 had raw pain out in the open. 1986 dressed the pain in production and called it triumph. Whitney Houston was both eras at once, the shine and the shadow, the gospel root and the pop crossover, the voice that could do anything in the human being who was never allowed to just be.
Find your strength.
She was the genre fully realized and fully broken by the same world that worshipped her.